Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Off Axis Podcast, where we talk entertainment, acrobatics, business, entrepreneurship, and more fun, exciting stuff. If you guys enjoy this podcast, please share with your friends. Make sure you like and subscribe. Now, let's get into the podcast. Enjoy. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Off Axis Podcast. It has been 3 years since we've done one of these podcasts. The last time we did a podcast, it was possibly the most boring time to ever do entertainment podcast. Back in 2020, we started this thing a week before the whole world shut down.
The apocalypse.
And then the next 20 episodes were basically, so what have you guys been doing since we all lost our jobs? So I'm here with Mike Saveland and Brandon Birchak. How are you guys doing today?
Good, brother. All good. Good to be here. Yeah.
Good?
I'm doing great.
Awesome. So, Brandon, you were on the podcast 3 years ago. Can you give us a quick background on yourself and what you were doing up until 3 years ago or so?
Yeah. I was a former diver, and then I transitioned into, Cirque Du Soleil and Dragon, like a lot of young acrobats and athletes do at the end of their career. And then I was performing juggling and hand-to-hand and Russian swing, high dive for, various shows, traveling.
What would you say is your favorite of those disciplines?
Oof. Well, if my body is healthy, Russian swing is about as mint as it gets. You can get so much out of that. Yeah. When I was in China, I did 6 somersaults, 6 front flips to blind.
Yeah.
From Russian swing, and that was like my absolute glory days. If I could just relive like a month of my body over and over again, it would be when I was absolutely gilled out from training and doing big stuff on swing, because it's so fun, it's crazy, but you got to be really tuned up to do it safely and to have fun.
Yeah, that thing is super dangerous.
It's by far the most dangerous apparatus I've ever been on.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah. So, Mike, what's your background?
Oh well, basically I do everything.
Okay, everything.
I started diving and trampoline when I was 20. Gone to shows.
You started when you were 20?
Yeah, I started really late. I didn't have access to any training stuff before I was able to go to university. So
interesting.
I just wanted to lose weight and not be so fat behind a computer desk. But then I got into shows. At 24, I went to the U.S. Nationals for trampoline. And
which is a miracle, by the way. It's like shocking that you could be 20 years old
and getting into
start
finals.
trampoline, and then because everybody knows each other in those circles, right?
Yeah, they usually start at like
Can you
6.
imagine, like, if I was a diver and then somebody showed up one year and they were like, "Hey, I started 3 years ago," I would be bummed.
Yeah, I would be too.
Right?
Yeah.
I'd be like, "What the?" Anyway,
well, so were all those 18-year-olds that I beat at nationals.
Yeah. Well, when you start, I would say maybe the advantage is when you start later, you're more mature and you probably have a better understanding of how to learn skills versus when you're a young kid. And then also, I would say you get burnt out quicker as a kid. You've been doing it for so long. It's hard for you to
I definitely got massively burned out.
Yeah.
At the end of my diving career, I was so done. I was crazy done. I actually, I really don't have regrets in my life, but I dove longer than I needed to. And my last year, I was absolutely miserable. I had a great year. And then I, came back for another one, and it was not what no joy at that point.
Yeah, I bet.
And that's the main reason why I was able to do what I did at that age, is because I didn't have all of these micro injuries while I was growing up as a teenager. I was able to come in fresh and not make all the mistakes those other people had to. So it gave me a strong advantage.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah, when you do stuff from a young age, you get tired of it. You're kind of just doing it because this is the thing you do. When you learn,
well, you're also self-identifying from it. You're like, for me, I literally didn't know who I was outside of diving for the majority of my, early life, and I didn't even know what I would be afterward, and I couldn't even imagine a concept of me that was not Brandon the diver or Brandon the gymnast, So,
yeah. I do want to touch on that because I think who you identify as is so important, because a lot of people, they want to change their life, but they still think of themselves as like just a acrobat or something like that.
Yeah.
Like for the longest time, I would pretty much self-identify myself as like a a stoner skater kid, and
but like the best stoner skater
I was
kid.
pretty good
back
in the day.
Worst stoner?
He was like legit the best. Weren't you the first sponsored scooter rider?
I was like the first guy to start making like over $30K a year off of it.
Yeah,
that was just because I was good with money though, and I was just always looking for jobs and things, and how can I like make money doing this scootering basically. So I can say kind of like I was like the first professional scooter rider who's actually making like a solid living off of it. And
that's developed. You like all of that that's inside you. Now you have a shoe company. And you sponsor UFC fighters. Yeah. And you put on your own productions.
So that's where I was going with it, was like at a certain point when I was 26 years old, when I wanted to start my own business, I had to make this switch in my mind.
Where were you when you were 26?
I was in LA, and I had just quit my job working for Razer. I started a social media business. We made really good money. We cracked over 6K in a year, or six digits in a first year. And then it all kind of just like fizzled away because I didn't do what is very important, is acquiring talent and leads and stuff. And then my clients all kind of dropped off at the same time, and I scrambled. And at that point, there was too many other people doing social media businesses. And my first business kind of failed. So then the second one I kind of started, which was Off Axis. And I had to like make this cognitive switch in my head of, I'm no longer this stoner skater kid. Like, I'm going to start identifying as a business guy who reads a lot of books, and I'm also a pro athlete. But that old identity like left with me during that day, and I had like a really, really horrible year one year.
Yeah.
And it
Did
was
you find
like,
it hard to transition with like some of your network to be like reappraised differently?
I would say so, yeah. Like, because I meet people who I haven't seen for like 7-8 years, and like, dude, you're not even the same person anymore. And it's like the way I approach life, how I was literally just a reckless skater kid from the skate park, that was who I was back in the day. I was always like pretty smart when it came to like school stuff, but it was kind of like who I identified as. And I think that was the main problem. And I think a lot of people, especially when I hear people say that I'm poor or I'm just fat, that's because you think of yourself that way. If you started thinking of yourself as someone who goes to the gym every single day, you would immediately have great benefits, because it's easy to once you think of yourself as a certain human being, it's easy to start changing yourself into that person, versus if you always say like, I'm fat and lazy, you're probably going to be fat and lazy. Yeah. Or like, if I'm poor, you're probably going to be poor. But if you say I'm rich, like, there's a whole mindset with that. And like,
there is a mindset, but it's not quite that easy. You can't just like,
it's not easy, but you will start doing things that rich people do, like reading books and like doing certain things with your money, making budgets, setting huge goals. Versus if you just say you're poor, you're always going to come up with the excuse of why
just
you don't have money.
Looking for enough money for next month.
Yep, exactly. Anyway, so let's touch back on, did you perform for Cirque, Mike?
No, I never performed for Cirque.
You did other performances,
yeah,
right?
I did a decent number of months and years for Royal Caribbean on board a cruise ship in the East and West Caribbean. Also, I worked for some smaller companies that would do, they just pay to fly me out, and then I'll do like a festival or a fair, a state fair. So that lasts, these are the short-term gigs, 2, 3, 4 weeks. And then in between those two ends of the spectrum, I would get paid to fly out internationally. So I did like 6 weeks in Brazil right when I turned 21 years old. I worked in South Africa, Dubai, China for too long.
China for too long.
Yeah, 3 months was plenty.
That's a long time in China.
But
that is a really long time in China.
Also, one of my favorite ones was I got to work at the Olympic Park in Sydney. And we set up our high dive tower right in front of the Olympic torch. So every day I would climb up to 10 meter, light myself on fire, and I have the Olympic torch in the background.
That's awesome.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Nice. Sweet, brother.
What's your favorite height to dive from?
72. 72 feet. Yeah.
I like 50.
I would say 60. 60 is high enough that you can like crank and not worry about getting smoked, because even if you have to go hands on or take a bomb, you're okay, right? But
to a degree, you're okay.
I mean, yeah, depending, right? But then, as you go up higher, It changes. I mean, you take a wipe out from the Red Bull height, that'll change your week. Yeah.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah, that's why I like 50, I'll do up to 70 or so.
50's
but
comfy.
50, you can have like a few drinks and then go and do like a fun flip. But once you get past that, you're going to need some mental prepreration.
Yeah, I think anything lower than that, like I have to try harder. And
Yeah,
I'm really
that's
a
the
lazy
problem.
diver.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lower than that,
I'm throwing
you're
hard.
hucking hard to make some big stuff. So.
Well, I usually don't go over 2 flips. That's the most I ever do is 2.
Yep.
That's all you need.
Mike, so you do investments and that kind of stuff. What are some projects that you're working on?
Currently?
Yeah.
Well, currently, I'm working on a project called Elite Performance Design, where we're bringing in a bunch of experts to, do a bunch of stuff. But one example would be produce master classes. So Brandon, for example, has already produced a master class on breath holding. We have another gentleman named Tice who is working on hypertrophy as well as
Tice
flexibility.
from Duo Transcend.
Yeah.
Mary and Tice.
Tice and Mary.
He's built like Godzilla.
Dude.
It's crazy.
He is.
It's great. He's literally built like Godzilla.
Yeah,
It's
I would maybe
shocking.
say King Kong or something.
It's shocking.
He's just
his shoulders are like as big as a handball.
Yeah,
They're
I'm looking
enormous.
forward to his master class because I
Yeah.
would love to see some stuff on.
Yeah, that dude's a monster.
He's jacked.
Yeah. He is. He legitimately is. Yeah. So we're doing a master class with Tice on hypertrophy and mobility for various different professional athletes and entertainers. And he's going to be working with Dr. Mercer from UNLV and Dr. Donahue as well. And it's really unique to have somebody who's like so high level, but then also congratulated significantly by a lot of research in the background. So that's going to be an absolute banger. And a whole bunch of other master classes in that project. So Gary Hunt is going to do one. The million-time world champion in high diving, the absolute goat of jumping off anything high, and lots of other people too. I think Grace Good's going to do one. I think Jackie Burns, who's a absolute Broadway mint in that industry, she's also going to do one on just how to be the best performer you can be. She's the longest running Elphaba in the Broadway musical called Wicked, and so there's a lot of really unique people lined up, and then also all the doctors are also doing a master class as well. So
what was Doug doing? Toxicology or blood toxicology?
So Dr. Mercer is doing. So Dr. Mercer is like the VO2 max guy on planet Earth. Dr. Donahue is sort of one of the more famous brain sort of. Oh boy, neurologists and but also like some of the programs that he's created with Al Light, who's the current resident coach for shows for Cirque du Soleil. Him and Donahue have worked together a lot, created these amazing programs for just how to be a better performer, how to get your headspace right, how to really, really interact with yourself, prepare and deliver. So all the doctors are doing some amazing things.
Yeah. So Brandon, you worked for Cirque for a while. What are some acts that you did in Cirque?
Well,
you did like juggling.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hello.
Hello. Are our mics good?
They're good.
Check. All right. I did all sorts of different acts. I started as a diver, so very natural transition into Russian swing and high diving, obviously. But I also ended up doing a hand-to-hand act, and I also did a solo juggling act for a while, which was like mind-bogglingly stressful. I think that juggling is.
Yeah.
It's so awful.
Yeah, well, like every juggler I've ever seen or worked with, they're juggling constantly.
Yeah.
Like, it's
the upkeep of the performance itself is crazy. When I was doing an act, I was having to train maybe like 3.5 hours a day before every show, and
that's crazy.
And you still can't get it right, Mm-hmm. So I think my longest streak without a drop was like 4 months. And
well, that's a really long time.
Well, granted, my act was nowhere near as hard as a lot of other jugglers.
Yeah.
But back when I was performing, it was, relatively difficult. I finished with 7 balls and stuff. I used to kick up from 3 to 7 balls in my act, which at the time was, relatively high level, but not nearly even what, a lot of my peers were doing. But now, I mean, it seems like everybody and their dog can just juggle 7 balls magically. So
yeah,
I have no idea how that works. Actually, so, because we have a production company and we get reached out to about having jugglers, right? And so I give them Vladik, right?
Yeah, I worked with him once.
Yeah, Vladik's unbelievable.
He's probably the best juggler I've ever worked with.
He's one of the greatest jugglers of all time. And so, but if Vladik's not available, because Vladik and I had really similar routines, I tell the client, if you ordered Vladik from Wish.com, you get me. and the client's like, oh, that's a weird thing to say. And then they like look at his act and look at my act, and they're like, that's pretty accurate. It's like so yeah.
You just sold them on the Wish.com version.
Anyway, everybody likes a joke, so yeah, the client's normally fine with it.
Yeah.
We're literally like the same height. Our face is very similar. Like our act is extremely similar, like the exact same, except his hair's crazy.
Yeah, he's got crazy hair.
Yeah.
And okay, so have you worked with Cirque before? Like not just as a performer, you did some other stuff with them and with Dragon, right?
Yeah, I've done a lot of show creations, so helping design acts and come up with novel concepts and things like that. Doing a bit of human performance design work, coming up with different acts and being sort of the guinea pig for, you work with the engineers and then they create an apparatus based on what you have in mind, and then you apply context to it and you try to figure out a way to make it an act. So I actually really love that. That's one of my favorite things about circus, but it's so rare because you really need an astronomical budget for that kind of work behind the scenes. So super rare, but like crazy enjoyable and so rewarding when it finally comes to stage.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I do want to talk about your breath holding briefly.
Just briefly.
Just briefly.
So
I'll keep it brief.
I'm going to keep it. We just did a podcast before this, and Brandon talked about it for 20 minutes, and we weren't actually recording.
Well, there's a lot of information.
There's
a lot of information there.
So to keep
I'll keep it brief.
The untrained person who knows nothing about VO2 max and all this stuff, how do I go from a 45-second breath hold to a minute-long breath hold? What are some things for my audience who probably can only hold their breath for 45 seconds or so? How do we get them to a minute?
All right. So first, when you hold your breath, your urge to breathe doesn't come from a lack of oxygen. It comes from a buildup of CO2. At all times, your body is doing a real-time readout of your blood pH, which is informed by how much CO2 you have. So if you want to hold your breath longer, what you really need to do is fight against that CO2 tolerance. So if you can hold your breath for like 40 seconds right now, but you want to hold your breath for 4 minutes, all you're going to do in the morning, you're going to wake up, your CO2 is really high, you've been doing tidal breathing, and then you're just going to hold your breath as big as you can until you have the urge to breathe. Then you're going to relax, exhale, and you're going to do that for like a set of 10. So you hold until the urge to breathe, then you're going to do that for a set of 10, and after a couple of weeks, your tolerance to CO2 is going to be so much higher that your total breath hold capacity is going to be way, 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 way bigger than what it was before. Yeah.
Yeah, I was working on it right now. I was
Yeah.
trying to hold
All
my
good.
breath through that whole conversation.
All good. So, and then, essentially everybody can hold their breath for 5 minutes, more or
Yeah,
less.
you can hold it. We forgot to mention, Brandon can hold his breath for over 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
20?
that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, that's I can do 45 seconds, and
You could do 5 minutes. Everybody can do 5
You would
minutes.
say that, but that just doesn't seem like possible to me.
Honestly, it also, so you also
How can
have-
I get to 5 minutes?
Okay, so, well, that's a little bit more complicated
Okay.
process, but, relatively informable.
How long will it take me?
You could get to 5 minutes in less than 2 months for sure.
There might be a master class on that.
Yeah. There is also a masterclass on that called How to Hold Your Breath for 5 Minutes by Elite Performance Design. You could maybe get there in a month. You could definitely get there in 2 months. And so really you're like working against your tolerance for CO2, as we talked about, but you're also increasing your lung volume a lot. So you're just going to hold your breath, take a really big deep breath, and then you're going to pack. So you're just going to keep pushing extra air in. Yeah. So what that's going to do is that's going to increase your lung volume. And this is one of the first things that we do with all professional athletes that we're working with. So if you have a balloon and you blow it up and you let the air out, it's more or less the same size when it's done. If you do that 20 times in a row, if you blow up the balloon over and over again, then when it's latent, it's like 4 times the size the balloon originally was. So you can think of a similar relationship in your chest and your intercostals. By really, really packing that air in the mornings when you wake up, you're giving yourself an increase of lung volume by like 10 to 20% throughout your day. So that's literally good for everybody, like not just an athlete, but even if you just have a business or you're a CEO, you're going to have a greater tolerance to like this anxiety that comes with CO2 when you're doing shallow breathing for whatever your performative work is.
Yeah. So do your lungs actually get bigger?
So they do. And also you increase the density of the alveoli in the lungs. So your lungs are like a sponge inside. It's not like a balloon in that context. It's a sponge. But when you do this like packing exercise over and over again, you also increase the density of the alveoli, which gives you a better transfer of oxygen and CO2. So everything gets boosted. And that's so easy to do with literally any athlete. And, you know, these football teams or hockey teams, they're spending astronomical amounts of money to increase their VO2 max by like 1 or 2 points, right? But think about taking a UFC fighter or a football player, increasing their lung volume by 15% in a matter of 60 days. It's like astronomical. And it's really, really easy. We just have to like keep practicing it.
Yeah.
You know?
Interesting. Yeah, you should do like a masterclass on that. So you just recently started a production company, correct? How long ago was this that you started it?
Not super recently, but you know, what was that?
6 Foot Creations?
Yeah.
I think we did that in the end of 2020.
Yeah.
That's pretty recent. You know, 3 years or so.
Yeah, 2020. So, you know, obviously the pandemic was crazy. It was the apocalypse for everybody, but really also like for myself and Mike and Mel and, you know, all of our team, we were able to do a lot of heavy lifting behind the scenes while there was nothing going on, which was great. And, you know, you have to put those pots on to boil for a long time before you're ready, right? And so it was good for us.
Yeah, patience with, you know, there's no such thing as an overnight success.
Yeah.
Sometimes I would say there is such thing as like an overnight move that just switches the whole business. Like for us, I recently got an agent and it was just like to the moon, you know, and before that it was just such a struggle because I was doing all the calls and everything myself. And then I was just like, you know what, I think it's about time to get an agent. Someone had reached out to us before, and then here we are, you know. Now we're booking like literally 4 to 5 times as much as we were before. They do take a cut of the money, and that's what I was kind of concerned about. You know, I always am like, I don't want to give too much of my like equity away and that kind of stuff. But then, you know, they start bringing money in, and you can go from struggle, and then it's just like one move, and it's kind of like an overnight success.
Yeah, but those overnight successes only happen because of so much preparation.
Yeah, that's absolutely right.
And what I find the most frustrating is you never can predict when that overnight change happens.
That's true.
Slaps.
I like the saying, success is when preparation meets opportunity.
Yep, absolutely.
Because I remember sitting there for like, because I did DoorDash every single day for 4 years in a row when I first started my business, because I didn't want to take any extra money from other people, no investors and that stuff. So I was just funding it off of literally doing DoorDash. And I was just like, one of these days, you know, it's all going to come. And one of the other things that I realized that was really holding me back was I was splitting my attention 3 or 4 different ways. Like I have a footwear company, I have a YouTube channel, I have a production company, and then I was also doing gigs, like side hustle stuff as well. So my attention was split 4 different ways. And the moment that I quit my YouTube channel and doing the gig stuff and now I only just do off-axis stuff, was like a huge moment for us. That was about 2 years ago. That's when everything started really rolling.
Yeah, nice.
Like a lot of people, I would say, split their attention too many different ways, and they have so many like side hustles, and they're dipping their toes, but they're also competing with people who are all in.
Yeah.
It's really hard to compete with that.
Yeah. And also when you talk about like splitting your intentions and your time and energy, you know, depending on what you want to do, you don't necessarily have time to learn all these different things, right? So for us, when we're like starting this production company, you know, magically I can barely use a camera, right? But we have so many amazing people that have done so much incredible work along the way that's irreplaceable. And so some projects, like it's all you, it's all your energy, right? But depending on what you want to do, for example, we're going to be producing our own resident water show in 2024. And that pot to boil required an enormous amount of effort from all these incredible people, right? So like Austin and Bryson are so unbelievably good at what they do.
Yeah, super talented.
It's unbelievable.
Austin's such a good videographer.
He's both of them are just absolutely freaking amazing.
Yeah.
And you know, there's no way on planet Earth that I would ever be able to do what they do, because they're so good at what they do. And so depending on what your project is, yes, you have to learn the vernacular of every, you know, kind of asset in your goal, but also you have to, you're better off outsourcing that understanding to somebody who's already great at it.
Yeah.
And then you have to wait, and you have to put it on the stove, and it's going to take a while. But, you know, and so when we started the production company, that was years ago, but now we're finally going to have like a resident show, and that's unbelievable. But it comes from the amazing work and talent of so many people, and I can't say that enough. I mean, yeah.
What would you say is the hardest part of owning a production company?
I don't know if this is just me, but the hardest part for me has just been not knowing what's next in the fold, like what the next steps are, because there's not really a blueprint for it.
Yeah.
So, you know, we do one thing, we did some stuff for like World Expo in Dubai, and then, well, what's next? So, you know, I mean, I've like cold called crazy amounts of people about all sorts of different projects, because I don't know what to do, right? But some of them land, and then it's all okay, really, in the end. But you've certainly got to have, you know, serious resilience and willpower to get through sort of these ups and downs and these really latent moments where you're like, well, I guess I'll just come up with some other, you know, project or configuration to, you know, push the company this way or that way or whatever. And you kind of throw a lot of lines in, and then when one bites, you take the rest of the rods out, you follow it.
Yeah.
And then when that's done, you put all the lines back in, even if it's stuff that you haven't touched or, you know, really worked on conceiving for a while. So it's tricky in that way, because for me, I love structure so much.
Yeah.
And not having that structure, I think it's different for everybody, but you know, like you and Dave Matz are truly the gold standard for, I'm a performer, now I'm a producer, I have a company, and I'm just killing it, and I'm just rolling with it along the way.
Yeah.
And I think that I'm not as good as you guys nearly at understanding that lack of structure and knowing what's next. So for me, that's been tricky along the way, but I've definitely grown, and I've learned better how to organize myself and how to kind of create my own structure, even if there's not an end goal per se in various different things. But it's been a huge growing process.
Yeah. I would say the best thing about owning a business is that you have to learn so many different things.
I would say that's the worst thing.
It's the worst thing. I mean, like when I came to like having to upgrade our insurances and stuff for the theme parks, I was like stepping into a whole new world. I was like, wait, this insurance that I've had for years, specialty insurance, doesn't actually cover anything. Mm-hmm. Like, it only covers one person. And I was like, holy crap. Like, I didn't know about this. Like, everyone thinks they're insured and stuff, you know, and then they're really actually, it's only if you hit an audience member.
Yep.
But
we've had to pull insurance policies for like $10 million.
Yeah.
And that was crazy. And then we're like scrambling, right?
Yeah.
We're like, I don't know who to call. So, you know, we've like, you're just like cold calling various insurance companies that work in entertainment. Yeah. And they're like, oh, we've never met you. And no. So,
But the good thing about, you know, being in business is if, God forbid, the business ever goes bankrupt or something, you can take all of those skills that you learned to different places. Like, I've learned how to set up a podcast studio, how to do insurances, how to import footwear from China, how to set up shows, sound equipment, like all these things. And that's just because I had to learn that. Like, I didn't have the budget to like throw at other things. And I enjoy learning all these different skills because I feel like acquiring new skills is like the ultimate way to fight inflation, because, you know, your skills will always go up no matter how much.
That's interesting.
You know, however, like, you can put money into stocks and stuff, but if you invest into yourself and your own skills, you're always going to be able to make more and more money, and you're always going to have a safer bet at getting a job or booking yourself somewhere. And especially a lot of performers, they spend all this time on only one skill. And I always tell people, like, you should, you know, if you knew social media or marketing
also,
or that stuff.
Also, that comes with a novel mindset that not everybody has, because you're also betting on yourself, right?
Yep.
And so if you're a performer, maybe you're not betting on yourself. If you happen to be a performer in a really big show, you're betting on that show.
Yes,
you don't have to put all of your stock into you. You say, I'm in this Cirque show. The Cirque show is great. That's where I'm putting my belief.
I would say you are betting on yourself, because you're betting on yourself to not get hurt. Well, and that's also a risky
you are,
game
but
too.
But you're not the product.
Yeah.
You're betting on a different product. You're not the product.
Yeah, true.
The show is the product. So what you're saying about learning all these skills is that you are betting on yourself. You're the product, right?
Yeah.
Whatever it is, as an entrepreneur, as an investor, as a, you know, an athlete, whatever. However, a lot of performers and athletes, you know, we really, a lot of people have this, you know, lack of faith at the end of the rainbow, right? Where you're like going to get all the way there, but you go, I don't know. I don't know if it's me. I don't know if I'm the guy.
Yeah.
And when you're in a big show, that's not a problem, because you say, oh, all my belief is in the product. It's this Cirque show, or, you know, this event in the Middle East, or whatever it is. Mm-hmm. But when you're taking time and energy and economy out of your life and investing it in yourself, you have to believe that. You have to be right there all the way to the end.
Yep.
Right?
But one thing to keep in mind is whenever you bet on yourself, you always get a return on investment.
This is true.
That's true.
You're not taking losses. But if you bet on a different product, well, sometimes those shows don't work. All of my friends lost their job on the same day.
Yep, everyone lost their job.
So
you're working for someone else, making them money.
Exactly.
You're making what your skills market value is, and a lot of people don't like equivalate that. They think they're worth a certain amount, and then you have to realize, who are you competing with? You know, if you're a 35-year-old acrobat who is just as skilled and knowledgeable as a 22-year-old acrobat, you're probably not going to get the job.
Yeah,
they're going to want to go with the younger person.
Absolutely.
In a perfect world, but there's also nepotism. So
yes,
that's true.
Lots of friends.
But
small
you know
industry.
what, too, though? Like, I would say that even nepotism has like gone down quite a bit.
I would imagine
because the industry took such a huge hit. The sort of behind the scenes nepotism in a lot of the industry has gone to the wayside in favor of just cheaper, whatever's the bottom line. So
yeah, I see a lot of foreign acrobats coming into Cirque nowadays, and a lot of the Americans are kind of quitting or doing their own thing, and you know, they got them. They kind of Cirque's got them kind of hate to say it, but by the balls if you're here on a visa, you know? It's a
Yep.
lot.
Yeah.
You can't just kind of push your weight around.
Yep.
You are kind of dangling by the thread. They're like, we don't like you anymore. Go back to wherever you came from, you know? And
Well, and think about how insane this is that if you're applying for a position on like Russian swing or teeterboard or whatever it may be, Cirque has great networks all around the world. Well, I'm just using Cirque for an example, but you know, a lot of these companies. And so what you're competing against is that Cirque is also leveraging different athletes from countries that are really, really hard up, right? So, you know, if they're offering some young kid from a war-torn country who's a former world champion to go risk their life every night and do something truly incredible, but then they're going to offer $120 a night to do that because that person is leveraged so unfairly to not be able to turn that down.
Yeah.
And so that whole market space is very different now than it was even 5 years ago.
Yep.
And there's very little way to get around that from either perspective. If you're the young athlete from a war-torn country, or if you're the American performer, whatever it may be, you know, we're all in it together, whether we like it or not. But there's not a lot of avenues outside of that leverage, because at the end of the day, you know, someone's going to take it.
I think the best thing for the industry is to have more brands that have more reputation.
Absolutely.
Like, we're getting to the point where we're hiring 25 people a year at least, sometimes even more than that. You know, if we include all the jobs, we're at like 40 to 50. But we have on call like 12 to 20 people all at one time, basically.
Yeah.
And the more companies there are that are putting on shows like this, the more leverage that people have, the more they can stick up from themselves, the more they can say like, screw you.
A
Cirque Du
million
Soleil
percent
or whatever, whoever.
Yep.
I can go over here and I can make more money, you know, and then you start to actually have some leverage. And as the further we get away from COVID, I think the further we're going to see like the real players who are actually doing business correctly, not wasting money in crazy places.
Yeah.
I think who puts on Absinthe? I think
so that's
Spiegelworld.
Ross from
Spiegelworld.
Spiegelworld. Yeah.
I don't
Ross
know.
is a legend.
I don't know too much about like how they run their shows and stuff, but when I go to their show, I'm like, they are running their shows really well.
It's mint. It's mint. They're absolutely killing it. And Ross
the production's so good.
Ross is excellent. Ross is great. He's a visionary, and he's not wasting money on overhead.
Yeah,
because
exactly.
when you get into these corporate structures, there's so much wasted money. You have no idea. Oh, by Cirque du Soleil, right?
Yeah.
They make $400,000 a night. $400,000 a night. Okay. So the unions in basketball and football, there's a negotiated percentage of what the revs go to the athletes.
Yeah.
Right? Doesn't exist in our industry.
No.
Everybody else is union. So your riggers, your techs, everybody else has guaranteed hours and overtime and all of that. The artists, absolutely not. They're screwed.
Yeah.
And when you get into that corporate structure, the artists are the ones that are leveraged the hardest, because the people running the show, they're getting a percentage. So they've already signed a deal with the casino, for example, right? It's going to cost you this much to run the show. And they build out that budget as big as they can ahead of time. They go, okay, this is what it's going to cost you. But then once the show's up and running, the client, they don't see the books. So then the company, they go, okay, well now we're going to drop all these salaries by 60%, and these ones and these ones and these ones and these ones over time. And then they're just recuperating all that money that was initially guaranteed by the client in the budget. So then they're just taking that over time.
Yeah.
And there's no turnabout for the artists in that way, except for like what you do and what Dave Matz does, you know, and you're out there and you're doing your own thing, and you're creating your own enterprise, you're creating your own clients and all of that. But if you're in that machine, you're kind of hard pressed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a bummer. But I think the more companies that are out there that are doing what we're doing, the better it is for everyone.
Absolutely.
Essentially,
absolutely.
we're just, at the end of the day, I'm an opportunity creator for acrobats.
Yeah.
And that's the way I think of myself, is I'm just trying to create, like, the more money that I make, the more opportunities I create for other people, because the more money I pour back into acquiring leads and all that good stuff. I do want to talk about I do want to give a few tips before we get into that. As a performer, when you are leveraging things, like I call this price anchoring, and it's when if let's say you're getting a gig or something, someone asks, okay, how much are you a day? And the highest price you can think of is $400 a day. That's the most I've ever made, If you say $400, it's actually a pretty low rate for like a single day thing.
For anything.
If you just double that and say, I'm worth $800 a day, which is actually still, it's decent, you're more likely to get that $400.
Here's what I would say.
Absolutely.
Here's what I would say. Whenever anybody asks you a price for anything, you never give them an answer. You ask them questions.
Yeah.
So you cannot build out a budget for absolutely anything without information.
Yes.
So what am I getting hired for? Where is it? How long is it? Okay. So, because if it's in Sacramento, or if it's in Napa, or if it's in Florida, these are all different. And as soon as you interact with the client in that way, you immediately go to the top of that list for somebody that knows what they're talking about and can deliver.
Mm-hmm.
If you give them a price right off the bat, you're immediately showing like your juvenile understanding of the economy of the situation.
Yep.
So the first thing you should be doing is asking questions, and then you can reply to them. And they're going to be much more willing to meet you, whatever you need, right? So, okay, so it's going to be 2 days. I have to travel here. Am I bringing my own props? Am I bringing my own costumes? And then you have your little budget. So this is your costume. Let's say your costume costs $300. So you have a 10% depreciation on your costume for every time you perform it. That's what you're going to build into your budget. So if your costume is $300, you're going to put in that $30 as your charge for essentially a rental fee for the costume. Same for the props. Also the vehicle that you're going to use, the travel time. If you have a travel time, you're going to give yourself half of your day rate for a travel day.
Yeah.
And you're going to build all that in. And you come back to the client. You say, these are the relative costs associated. And it's going to be a little higher than what they wanted. And then they're going to come back and they're going to meet you. And then you can get the deal done.
Yeah.
But if you just jump in with a number, I think that's not wise.
Yeah. I think one of the things that really took my company to the next level was I was reading $100 million offers by Alex Ramosi, and he was talking about always have the biggest possible priced product that you can have, which on this TV back here, 2 years ago, this was the biggest possible product I could think of. I was like, well, instead of just doing ramps and then doing tramp ball and teeterboard all in different shows, we should put them all together.
Sure.
And then I had one client come along who gave me a rate.
Yeah.
It was definitely not the rate that I wanted for the show, but I was like, you know what? I'm going to take this whole budget and I'm going to put on this show, because now I have this crazy high expensive project to sell. And now this is essentially all we book. And just by I essentially quadrupled our normal daily rate to get to this show right here. And I think what a lot of people miss out on is people always try to do something cheaper than the rest of the people, and that's how they think they're going to get more.
Well, here's also
Walmartify the industry.
Versus add value, add as much value as you possibly can, and then scale back that value depending on what their budget is.
Well, you also want to give them a menu, and so any client that you work with, you want to do like a tiny bit of market research in the background, and just go on their website, see what they produced before, right?
Yep.
And give yourself a good rough estimate of what their market space is and what their market cap is. And then you're going to give them a menu. So let's say I'm going to go somewhere as a juggler. I'm going to say, well, here's my costs associated. This is the price. Here's what it would be if I'm going to do like 3 complete stage acts. Here's what it's going to be if I'm doing just like some ambient entertainment. But what you're really trying to do is lead them in the middle and say, I'm going to do like 2 stage acts, some ambient entertainment. I'm going to go over the top for it. I'll juggle for hours. It's all great. I'll crush it with your client and all that. And you guide them to what you want. And then for your next client, You're just going to shift all of those a tiny bit, and you're going to get a little bit closer to your upper range.
Yep.
Whatever that is in terms of performance and economy.
Yeah. Okay. So as a producer, how do you acquire your talent? And what are some things that you do? Because I know
well,
I've seen
here's the thing, dude.
Yeah.
You know, there are very, very, very few production companies that were started by former artists, right? Because you end up with lots of people in, you know, stage management, or really that have even many people that have nothing to do with entertainment, right? Whether it's like Pepsi and they come in as a GM for Cirque.
Yeah.
And they're starting production companies, right? Because they see this huge benefit from the economies of scale behind roughly where capitalism sits in entertainment right now.
Yeah.
So for you, for me, for Dave Matz, for different people in our sphere, we never ever have to like reach out to find talent, right? Because if you're, you know, Bob from Pepsi and you put on your Instagram, hey, I need somebody for this, well, who cares, right? But if you do it, it's all your friends.
Yeah.
So you already know, you've got your ear to the ground. So we really do not have to work to...
There's a lot of micro steps that we took to get to where we are today, though.
Yeah.
You know,
that's true. That's
years
true.
of doing shows. I do this.
Oh,
podcast
yeah, for sure. You have a
and,
huge historicity in all this stuff that you do.
Like,
and
also
so,
trying to put out a good impression to everyone, too.
Yeah,
absolutely. If you have a bad reputation, people aren't going to want to work with you.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, more or less. But to be honest, we know plenty of people.
I know.
That still get work, right?
They
because
still
yeah,
work with people they hate.
It comes down to you know, money and the client,
where you
really.
are, where your bank account's sitting.
But I think just coming from being an artist first, it also gives you so much good positive reciprocity with the artists, because again, the artists are one of the first and heaviest leveraged in the whole industry. So being an artist first, they know you've got their back.
Yeah.
Right? So obviously they're more willing to work with you. Like recently we had a client for a really big private event in Napa, and you know, the client changed a whole bunch of sort of concepts behind it really at the last minute, and they asked us to, you know, essentially tell the artists, oh, you have to do something different. And we said, well, we can't. We're not going to do that.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what it is. I'm not going to like turn about face to the artists and say all of that was untrue. You have to like do these stage acts as opposed to ambient. And that comes from having that relationship previously as an artist with your clients, and thinking, God, that's so unfair. It's so outrageous. So no. So the egg can't be on us, right? You just have to own it. And if you want to change that, well, you need to up the rates and you need to change things, because we're not going to do that.
Yeah, for sure. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we've had some pretty silly requests. We had one recently I don't want
to
talk about.
I had the most outrageous request ever one time. I was somebody wanted to hire me for juggling, and in the demo that I sent them, it was me at David's Dream Factory with the LED wall behind me, right?
Yeah.
So they wanted to hire me for like a ridiculously low number. It was so insane. And they said, oh, so do you just like, do you bring the wall with you? How long will that take to set up? So I was like, oh my God. They offered me like $600 to juggle, and they thought I was going to bring an LED wall. Like, it's so crazy. It's so like, oh yeah. And like the 4 techs that I'm going to need to like, LED wall? Oh yeah. I'll just call up Dylan and he'll set it up for like 12 hours, and then we'll share like the 11 nickels. Anyway, so insane. So yeah, some clients are really, they have no idea.
They're just delusional.
Well, these are the people that also don't come from entertainment. Yeah. That don't come from entertainment. They just see it as a way to, you know, capitalize on a leverage point in our economy.
Yeah. Okay, so for the last like 10 minutes or so, I do want to watch some reels so we can kind of give some feedback to the artists.
Great.
And there's a variety of different reels I was submitted, and I kind of want to just watch them.
Yeah,
can you see the TV from there?
All good, I can.
And we'll just give them some tips, and I haven't seen any of these reels yet. And I want to kind of just go over what you would think of if someone was to send you this reel
Yep.
to get hired. So this first one is Kayla Kalitz. Sorry, I can't say that last name. Kaliz.
I don't know.
Kalitz?
Kaliz. I've done a few gigs with her.
Kaliz?
I'm not going to play sound, sorry,
All
but
right. No, all good.
copyrighted music and stuff will get us kicked
Classic.
off YouTube.
Yeah.
So I believe she does have a voiceover right here, which I thought was really nice. She's talking about Ariel and stuff. The one thing I would say is you should put yourself on screen talking because it personalizes it.
Yep, I agree with that.
When I'm watching this right now, though, I kind of don't like all these cuts, to be honest, though. But
Well, it
she is
also
showing
it
a
also
lot of
depends.
skills,
It also
though.
depends on who you're sending it to, because if you're sending it to a client or if you're sending it to a producer, that's very different. Because oftentimes a producer really wants to see more of your full act. But a
for
client,
sure.
a client is more comfortable with all these cuts
Yeah.
because they're just seeing it as like the images that they're going to purvey for whatever event they're producing or
just the
hiring to be
concepts.
produced, right?
I would say as a performer, one of the main things to do, and also it's like a good way to keep track of how good you're getting and show your progress, is to just have a good demo reel to send. And then as you progress, cut some clips and add the new ones that get better.
Well, so like any act, right? You have two really important moments. You have your entrance and your exit.
Yeah.
So you really have to develop that same thing in your demo. It has to start out with a banger. So whatever your best stuff is,
Literally,
you've
your
got to
best
keep
thing
them
is the
watching,
first thing you put on.
right?
Yeah, you should attract the attention.
And your second best
And-
thing is
no,
the last thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then your third best is what you put second.
Yeah,
Yep, there you
that's,
go.
that's true too.
Third best,
Yeah.
then your filler.
Yeah, that's
I
correct.
would say it's really
And
important to have
don't
like
put anything in that
Yeah.
you think is mid. That you think, well,
Yeah,
maybe they'd be
keep
okay
it
with
out.
it.
Keep it
Like,
short
Keep
and
it
sweet.
short.
Yeah.
If
The other
you go
thing
past
too,
2.5 minutes, you're pushing it.
2.5 minutes is a max.
Yeah, I would say 90 seconds. 90 seconds.
90 seconds.
You should be able to fit everything in 90 seconds.
Yeah.
If
Yeah.
someone's trying to look at 20 of these,
Yeah.
they don't want to spend an hour.
Yeah.
So
if all of them are 3
Oh,
minutes.
And
okay,
also-
so this would be a problem, I would say. You know, if you have
Okay.
multiple disciplines that you're showing,
Yeah.
you should showcase those at the beginning because
Yep.
I might have already clicked off by now. So you
Yeah.
should have your multiple discipline row, multiple discipline reel, and show all of the different things. But
Oh, that was great.
that was really good.
So like I would have put that
So,
more towards the front.
Here's
She
the
had
other
so
thing,
much of
too.
that other stuff in the beginning that I
So
might have already clicked off.
the beginning of the video too was not on stage. Always start on stage.
yeah.
It's got to start on stage. You have to credify your abilities, and it's got to be on stage.
You should have started with the stage stuff.
Even
Yeah, it
even if you
implies other
don't
people want to
even
pay
if
you
you
money.
don't have great stuff on stage that's been filmed in the past, you just do some homework and figure out where there's a stage, whether it's like a library
Yeah, go
or
like
a
Dave Matz or
zoo or
something.
whatever, right? And you film it there. I used to do that when I was living in Paris. Is I would go to like an empty opera theater and set up lighting and film myself juggling, even though I hadn't performed that, because the videos that you have from your performance are often so far away, they're not good at all for your reel.
Yeah.
So a lot of the stage stuff you have isn't really usable for a client or a producer. So just go to a stage, find a bookstore somewhere that's got a stage, set up your lights and film it in costume 1,000%, and then you're just gonna put those like at the beginning of your reel.
Yeah. I would say, just from my perspective of what I do when I send to clients, and also like if you're an artist, keep it to 60 to 90 seconds. If you're selling a $20,000 show or something, then you want to have maybe a longer reel because they're spending a lot more money. They don't want to see 60 seconds.
Well, they're not looking at 20 of these.
Well,
all in one hour.
here's the thing though, is that you need both, because that's what
Yeah.
you need to send first,
yeah.
and then afterward you're gonna send the longer one as you
Yeah.
get further in the conversation.
Yeah, and if you do like trample and teeterboard and juggling, you should have a reel that's short that shows all three of them, and try to make sure the art or the producer knows within the first 10 seconds you do all three of these.
Yeah,
And
you could
then
do a
kind of show
fast
clips
cut.
here and there, and then you should have a specified reel for each one. Because if I'm
I think
hiring
so too, yeah.
for a tramp ball show, I don't want to see a reel that has a little bit of everything. But I might also watch that reel and be like, oh, I also need a juggler for this other project. That's why resumes
Yeah.
are important, and not enough artists have actual resumes.
Short
Short all of their
resumes.
skills.
Short resumes.
Yeah.
Keep it
One thing-
really easy to
yeah.
read.
So this next one is Jeremy Casper. It his generalist demo. So I'm assuming we're going to see multiple different things. I have not watched this. So 2:18, that's not a bad time.
No, that's fine.
So we got some teeterboard.
God, teeterboard is so hard on the knees.
Yeah, I don't see old guys doing that.
No. God, no.
So,
I like teeterboard too.
So here's the thing.
The pad.
If you're sending this to a new resident creation, you can put in the training stuff.
Yeah.
But if you're sending it to a producer or a client for an event, zero training stuff.
Yeah, you want to have all, like, I try to keep all of our clips in our reels and my personal reel as professional stage footage. Yeah. In costume and everything.
Absolutely. However, if you are applying for a resident position at a show
or foam pit stuff.
Well, it depends on who you're sending it to. So if you're sending it to the acrobatic designer for a resident show, you might want to show that quad back, and that's fine because that's going to be, that's going to light it up for whoever that acrobatic designer is. However, this is a really mixed reel.
I don't think he has professional stage footage, that might be why we
saw some. We just saw some.
No. There was a little bit of teeterboard.
Yeah, there was a little bit.
Very small amount though.
This is cool though. This shows like his other stuff.
Yeah.
But
here's the other thing too. You just send it, no matter what you've got. Right.
Yep.
So at the end of the day, I mean,
there we go.
Yeah.
That should have been one of the first things in there. But although you can't see who's who.
The last thing.
Yeah. That's cool too.
But you just send it and then you keep working it out, right?
Yeah. Just keep making it better.
Oh, that's so painful. The fingers on the head. It's awful.
I don't know.
They're like
which
grabbing
one
your brain.
I think he was the one on the bottom. So he's the one throwing here.
Yeah, house left.
So we got some bonking.
No need to redo those tricks, right? Especially because there was one that was on stage and one that wasn't. Right. So
that could be an easy.
Yeah, a lot of people will send me like videos and they'll have like a 1 and 3 on trample, and then like 2 minutes later or so they have a 1 and 3 to ball out, and it's like, why don't you just have the one, the higher combo, just show the best variety that you possibly can and show it in the best manner you can. And
teeterboard is so fun, by the way.
God, I love teeterboard to a dismount pad.
Well, here's the thing. So our new resident show, we're doing teeterboard into water.
That's amazing,
brother. That's the dream.
That's what I'm saying. Hire me. I want to be a performer again.
I wish my body was like 15 years younger. That was my dream. When I saw Russian swing into water, I was like, oh, it's amazing. I want to do that. I saw teeterboard and I was like, dang, somebody needs to do that into water.
That's what if anyone is listening to this and they have a pool that they will allow me to bring one of my teeterboards to flip in, it's got to be a big pool. It can't be like a small one. Hit me up because I want to do some
we're also going to be doing R&D on it, so we'll have that.
Let's do it. Okay, I got 2 more.
We also, our teeterboard is going to be at 3 meters into water.
Wonderful,
so, bro.
These
young kids are gonna do crazy stuff. They will can you imagine?
Crazy.
Dude, the internet ruined everything.
You have just created 1,000 more belly flops in the world.
People already do like 7 flips on trampoline now.
Hire those G-Tramp kids that just huck stuff off the freaking cliffs. They just huck and hope.
I want to see it. But I want to see it, but I don't want to have liability on it
Dude, I know. That's like the worst part about that is what keeps me up at night. For example, right now I have my show going on at SeaWorld. Dude, it is hard for me to when I know it's 7 to 10 when my trampoline performers are going. There's just like this a little bit of stress where I'm like, fuck, I hope I don't get a call today or something. I got a call from the president of SeaWorld the other day. I was like, oh this is gonna be good. This cannot be good. And it was fine, but it was just like, uh-oh.
It's like
SeaWorld president's calling me right now.
It's like when you're young, if you if you change like the air conditioner in the house and your dad just goes,
yeah,
I know it's happening. Yeah. You have like that in the back of your mind when a show is going on.
Yeah. So, okay. This next one is Caroline Godwin, performer located in Las Vegas.
Yeah.
This is a reel of stilt walking, flow, and chains. So I'm assuming it's everything. I like that it's only a minute and looks like 16 seconds. So let's watch this one. She's really good at this flow.
She's
stuff
really
too.
great.
Like
She's really great. Yeah.
Oh, I like that she's already thrown in
Boom.
4 disciplines. Even if it's not a stage, this is like at Dave's house or something. Yeah, it's professionally done.
It looks
now.
professional.
Yeah.
You know, and she's already shown us all of almost everything has been a different discipline. So I like the way this is starting.
Yeah,
this is good. Also, get your face in front of the camera, right? Like what she just did.
Personalize
right? Because also the client wants to know what you look like.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, so she's showing a lot of different things. I like this. You know, she's showing different outfits.
Yeah. This is really
Chains,
great.
lighting,
good lighting, professionally
different
done.
backgrounds.
She's smiling in every clip.
And even though for the most part of it, like this is obviously pretty much all shot at Dave's Dream Factory, you know, if you're the client, you don't know that.
Yeah, versus the previous one, clearly, a lot was done at LVCC.
Just go to Dave's house and film or something.
Yeah.
You know?
It helps to have friends.
Yeah.
Even if you have to pay, you know, there's an ROI on that stuff.
Oh, yeah, well, that's what happens if you invest in yourself.
Yep. So this is really good, you know. I already know, like, if I'm going to hire one of those things,
excellent.
like, that's excellent.
Really good.
I would say that's
also,
like a 10
at the
out of
end,
10.
though, like, put your email in the end of the video.
Absolutely.
Email at the end.
You have
know?
to put your email in the end.
Yep. Yes.
Yeah, and the beginning.
Okay, we got one more.
All right.
It's unfortunate we don't get to play the audio because, man, that really, really contributes more than almost anything in a demo reel. You're running a podcast.
Also,
people don't understand the most important part is audio quality. It doesn't matter how good the camera looks.
Yeah,
if
audio
it sounds like garbage, people will not listen after like 30 seconds.
Yeah, one time these mics, they just didn't record. And
if you are an artist and you're making a demo, do not pick your favorite song. Do not pick something polarizing, right? If you love Pinball Wizard by The Who, that's awesome. But it's not for your demo.
Yeah.
Whoever the client is, think of what does the client want to hear?
Yeah.
And then put that on top.
You know, I was thinking this the other day, and I think one of my biggest successes in business has been like, I don't always try to perfect the skill that I'm trying to make money off. Mm-hmm. I try to perfect the art of how do I make my client the most money with the skill that I'm giving them, you know? If I'm a videographer, the best way to make the most money off videography is not to get the best equipment because, to be honest, I was making 6 figures a year with a T3i that cost me $500.
Oh, yeah.
It's not about the equipment and stuff you have. It's about how you can use it to make this other person money. Like if I can make a great cinematic video, but I don't show how this product works very well, it doesn't really matter how much this company buys it off of me for, you know?
Yeah.
Like when I'm selling a show, I'm trying to get the angles that show my stage the best because I'm selling this stage to people.
So here's another part
don't care about
like
close-ups.
Here's another part about giving your client a menu, right?
Yeah.
Is you're going to list the specs for what you've got. If you're a videographer, here's what I'm going to provide. However, I can do it in these specs, and you're going to associate a rental fee.
There you go.
And then they're going to say, no, your other stuff's fine, and then that's right in your wheelhouse, and you don't have to sort of barter for a higher price.
Yeah.
And
all right, let's watch this final
let's go,
reel.
Mitch.
People are most happy with 3 options.
This
at least when they're presented with 3
Mitch
options.
Dubois. I feel like most of this stuff is going to be from my shows because he's mostly worked for me this last year.
Nice.
That's my show, Them and Bunnies. Nice. I painted that wall myself.
Oh, boy.
So it's good, though. He starts it off with professional footage.
But it's
Professional
vertical.
costume.
And that's not great.
It is vertical.
Yeah.
I want to say that I filmed this. Okay, you know what? He cropped this to vertical for
That is
Instagram,
correct, yeah.
and now we're watching it in Instagram format on
Classic.
YouTube. That's what it is.
Yeah.
That's
But
what
I filmed some of those
I know
clips.
this kid. He's great.
Yeah. So this is from our show in St. Louis, and I filmed that on 4K horizontal. But
He's great. He's really great.
no, he's great.
Yeah, and he's really, really good with like a client. He's got a great smile. His energy's excellent.
He's got a lot of other skills as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's at SeaWorld.
Yep.
Yeah, but I like that it's all off-axis footage. I would give him a 10 out of 10.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah, so this is his Trampall demo reel.
All right, so here's what I would say so far, right? Is that, and this especially because it's him. He's so personable and friendly, and he's got such a great face.
Yeah.
He at no point so far has shown that.
This is true.
You know
You're
what
just
I mean?
hiring a random acrobat that you've never seen.
It's just someone in a costume at this
It's
point.
just another bunny.
That's
right. So he needs to get in front of the camera, and he's got to
Like
pitch
that
that.
part, for example.
He's got to be
Yeah.
selling that, because that's one of his biggest assets, really. I chatted with him at your Trampall competition. He was lovely.
Yes.
We would love to hire him for anything. He was great, but we don't get that from the video.
Yeah. I think, so actually one of the moves that I just made recently, I'm doing this pitch for a convention, and I was going to send in our normal demo reel,
And he's got
but
his
what
email
I
on
did
hand.
was I actually put myself in front of a green screen, and I talked over the whole demo reel basically, and I personalized it to these clients, so that way when these clients are watching this reel, they're seeing me. And when you're working in business, it's like basically like, you know, if you are 10% better than someone else, but they like that other person as a person, they're going to hire that other person all day. It's about adding a personal touch to people so they want to work with you. And if you put yourself on screen and your face up there, you know, it's easier for them to get hired. You know, Caroline had a lot of clips where you could see her face and you kind of get an idea of who she is and stuff.
Yep.
The others, Kayla's was like kind of there, and I know she had a voiceover at the beginning of the video, but instead of a voiceover, put yourself talking like, hey, I'm Tanner Markley. These are the things that I do. I look forward to working with you guys. Just something like that that's small, and just putting your face on there, I think would help a lot, because you get an idea, you know, because sometimes, you know, hiring acrobats is kind of a roll of the dice.
It seriously is. No, it's a huge roll of the dice.
Acrobats could be wild, especially like BMX riders and stuff. Like these guys on our last tour, they were getting freaking wild.
We don't mess with that. That's all you.
Yeah,
I wouldn't even know the first thing about
the most talented BMX riders. A little crazy.
Well, yeah.
You know,
yeah.
Some crazy stuff goes on.
Curtis Downs used to live with us.
Yeah.
And him and his amazing wife, Grace.
Significant other.
Grace. No, they're not married. Curtis and Grace are unbelievable, and Curdy is a nut, man.
Yeah.
The stuff he does on that bike.
You got to be a little crazy.
The stuff he does off the bike.
You know?
Dude, he does a backflip with 4 whips.
Yeah. Yeah.
What in God's name?
You got to be a little
That's
got to have a couple
bonkers.
screws to do BMX.
At least if you get smoked,
concrete.
At least if you get absolutely freaking smoked on a Russian swing, there's not also a piece of metal in the air that's trying to tackle you. You know what I mean?
That's a good point.
Brother, that is crazy.
Yeah.
That is insane. At least when you crash, you're like, that's the end of it. But if you crash with a bike, you're like, we're halfway there.
Yeah.
Yeah. That might still be.
Oh, here comes the sequel.
Yeah. It's between you and God.
Yeah. But yeah. Cool. Any last things you want to talk about?
One thing I noticed about our commentary on all of these demo reels is it highlights something that I think most of us artists understand inherently when it comes to what we perform, but not necessarily this stuff, which is you have to understand your audience. If you're a stand-up comedian, you got to know who you're talking to.
Yeah.
And if you're trying to, because you're going to sell your act to them, and if they like it, they laugh. With this stuff, you're selling it to a client. You're selling it to your producer. So if you don't understand who you're talking to, that's going to get kind of scary. And you're just taking a shot in the dark, and maybe you get lucky.
Well, honestly, though, too, is like take time out of your day if you're making a demo and make like 5. Like literally make 5. Like completely. Like full stop. Make 5 demos. And then through that process, you'll be like, oh, that one, kind of shit. This one, oh, that's better. Right? And then make 1 at the end, right?
Yeah.
But like literally go through the whole process and make 5 demos, and then your demo is going to be banging, right?
Yeah.
It's the first pancake situation, right?
Yeah.
First pancake,
right? If you make 1, that's the only one, right? Make a bunch and then throw them all out, and don't be afraid to get rid of old work, right? Yep. It's like if you're writing anything, if you're copy editing, don't be afraid to just hit delete.
Yeah.
So by making a bunch, you become less afraid of that. So make a whole bunch of demos. Yeah. Literally invest your time in it. Make a bunch of demos and then delete a bunch of them. And then you're way better off. You have much more armory there.
The person who makes the best demo reel is the person that gets hired more, you know?
Well, actually, the person that makes the best demo reels is Austin Bradley and Bryson Bishop.
Yeah.
It is ridiculous.
I'm sure.
They're
dude,
unbelievable.
If you just pay, like, if you know you have a big project coming up, like, one of the best things I did was hire 2 videographers to come film our show in Lancaster last year. Mm-hmm. That one video has made me so much money. Yeah. And it cost me, like, I don't know, $2,000 or so in, you know, just paying these guys to come down with good equipment.
Get a multicam. Do a multicam.
Yeah, multicam stuff.
Go to a stage where there's nothing happening at your local museum or library. Send them an email. Talk to them ahead of time. A lot of these theaters, you can get in touch with anybody in town, right? Like where the extravaganza was or whatever. You do some research. You figure out who's the GM of that venue. You get in touch with them. You say, hey, can I film something there? And then I will promote it for you. So then when I release this demo, I'm going to tag you on all the social media channels, blah, blah, blah. They're going to let you in. You set up a multicam, you and 2 of your friends, and then you film it out. And then you hash that footage.
Yeah, I agree. I think what you said was really good, though. Make 5, because if you were to give 2 people 2 different projects, person A, your project is make the best reel you can, and you spend 5 times as long as the person B made 5 demo reels. That person who made 5 demo reels, their 5th demo reel is going to be better than your first demo reel.
Well, now they're an expert. They're an expert by the end, you know, and they know their own brand. You have to find your own brand.
Yeah.
And also put your email in the end.
Put your email in the end.
Put your email at the end.
Yeah.
Especially because start with a close up of your face. And start with a close up of your face.
Close up of your face. Yeah. Personalize
it's like a demo reel version of how to make a Tinder profile.
Yes.
I don't know.
This is something I wanted to do, though, because so many people like send me these, I hate to say it, but absolutely garbage demo reels or Instagram clips. Dude, and I'm like, dude, how am I supposed to hire you off of a trampoline clip of a mat getting thrown?
Dude, like, back in the day, we used to have to take stuff off VHS.
Yeah.
And then mail it.
That's awesome.
I
started with
VHS
demos.
Also. I mailed demos. I'm talking a box.
I did too.
Yeah. And you know what? You know what's such a heartbreaker? Dude, the coolest job on planet Earth used to be talent scout for like Cirque or Dragon. Because you would travel all around the world and you get to watch all these different acts, right? And whatever circus troupe or company, you get in touch with them, then they'll give you a showcase of their stuff.
Yeah.
Now, because of the internet, that job's gone. Huge bummer, dude. Huge bummer. That used to be literally the coolest job in the whole world of entertainment.
Yeah.
Now it's gone. You just go on Instagram. You're like,
Well, they still got to find these kids that they import and stuff to come and work for cheap, you know.
That is also correct.
I said that.
Yes. Anything else, Tanner?
No. Let's wrap it.
All right.
So where can everyone find you guys? Social media, websites, what is
anyone who needs to find me already knows how to find me.
Okay.
Yeah, so we've got our production company is 6footcreations.com, and our performance design company where we work with professional athletes and entertainers is eliteperformancedesign.com. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. 6footcreations.com and eliteperformancedesign.com. Yeah.
Cool.
And I don't do anything really on Instagram, so I literally made a post.
Cool stuff.
Well, our production company does, but I don't.
But not you personally.
I made a post yesterday and then I deleted it.
Cool.
So
that sounds personal. That sounds like personal health. Good job.
Sweet. Well, thank you guys for listening. If you guys haven't yet, subscribe to the YouTube channel. If you want to check out our shows, our show is offaccessacrobatics.com. That's going to be our entertainment stuff. Our footwear company, you see this beautiful shoe right back here, and there's actually 1,300 pairs of shoes on the other side of the camera that you guys don't see. Those are all on offaccessathletics.com. Please go buy some shoes so I can clear up some space in this basement. And we'll see you guys in the next one. Thank you guys. Bye-bye, everyone.
Right on, brother.
That concludes this episode of the Off Axis Podcast. If you guys found value in this, please consider sharing with your friends. Also, subscribe, and we'll see you guys in the next episode. Bye, everyone.